Brothers and sisters, beautiful Adelphoi, welcome back to Let the Children Come to Him. This is the second part of the testimony video. We are going to introduce twin flame telepathy, telepathy in general, twin flame telepathy, and mental health issues. Today, it's something where if one understands the channel is about child trafficking, they may wonder, he or she may wonder, what does that have to do with anything? We will get to this. I want to give somewhat of a trigger warning. We will talk about all kinds of topics that may be difficult to talk about. So if you are not feeling good today, maybe watch this video another day. We will go slow. I will try to go as slow as possible so that it's baby steps. As mentioned in the last video, we will start on Wikipedia with a definition for telepathy. I will just go to Wikipedia for all my definitions. That's not a very scientific way of studying something, but I thought for the videos it's best to refer to this, at least for the obvious simple definition. So I think this should serve us well today. Telepathy, from the ancient Greek tele, distant, and pathos, or pathia. Oh, I don't like that photograph, really don't like it. Feeling, perception, passion, affliction, experience is the purported vicarious transmission of information from one person's mind to another's without using any own human sensory channels or physical interaction. The term was first coined in 1882 by the classical scholar Frederick W. H. Myers, a founder of the Society for Psychical Research, SPR, and has remained more popular than the earlier expression thought transference. Telepathy experiments have historically been criticized for lack of proper controls and repeatability. There is no good evidence that telepathy exists, and the topic is generally considered by the scientific community to be pseudoscience. Telepathy is a common theme in science fiction. So from this definition on Wikipedia, we learn that there is such thing that was introduced by a man named Frederick, and people seem to know about it, and some people seem to look into it scientifically, but no true evidence that it's real has come forth at this point. So we don't need to look any further into this. I just want us to start off on the right foot, because this is important. The fact that there's no evidence on planet Earth at this point in time that telepathy is a real thing, and that it's considered science fiction in the heads of most. Now, 2 videos ago, we talked about twin flames. I also mentioned it in the testimony video. The twin flame concept was introduced by a woman named Elizabeth Clare Prophet in the 60s or 70s, and she was a leader of a religious group. She had a big following at the time, and this twin flame concept was created in the New Age spirituality movement that also came forth during that time. As I said, New Age spirituality isn't new. It's as old as Satan himself, so it's just a rebranding, if you will. We are going to look at these topics today from the standpoint of psychology science, from the standpoint of spirituality. So if you are weirded out, that's okay, but hear me out, because at the end of this, you will understand more why this plays a role in how to prevent and understand child trafficking in the future. Okay, so what is a twin flame? At birth, so this is now astrology.com This is not a scientific webpage. The twin flame concept is not recognized by any scientific. This is not a thing. It's just a spiritual community type of thing. Some people go through it and then they will tell you that it's real, but the rest of the world is like, yeah, yeah, for sure. Which means, no, that's not a thing. This couldn't be. You're mentally ill. And I'm laughing. It's not a joke, but we'll get to it. At birth, our souls are split in two. That's a bold claim, I would say. That sounds, first of all, very painful, and I don't mean in a physical sense. I mean in a spiritual sense. How awful and frustrating that must be, if it was a real thing. Which if you noticed, I do not believe it is, but if it was, that would be terrible, because it would always feel like the hole that most of us feel in our hearts could never be filled. Twin flame is simply the other half of your soul. So there's two divine counterparts. Divine meaning you are God, essentially. It takes inspiration. This twin flame concept and New Age spirituality in general is pretty much based upon Hinduism and Buddhism as a foundation. And the idea is that the counterparts are masculine and feminine, although they are not gender specific. And they need each other to be complete. So we have a man and a woman, usually. It can also be two women or two men. It doesn't matter, that cannot be complete without being with each other. But the twist here is that this journey, this twin flame journey, is about growth. And in order to grow, each other need to trigger the wounds of the childhood and the hidden pains and aches and feelings. And that's why the relationship is super tumultuous. There's always someone who runs, that's usually the masculine part, and always someone who chases, that's usually the feminine part. And as mentioned, both are considered divine, especially the feminine part, who has the role subscribed to as gentle, patient, loving, caring. And the masculine part is the divine that's usually in distortion, and is running, cheating, saying things, then not fulfilling them, So these are the two counterparts. In essence, of course, the ideal is both are not distorted, but genuinely divine. They are divine selves, and they merge, and it's a beautiful love story in its perfection. But this only works if both grow. And the divine feminine usually has to be understanding towards the distortion of the male, because he's in so much pain and she's the only one that can help him. And it's always ego-based. It's always buttering your ego, telling you that you, the feminine, if you are the only woman for him. And this is usually targeted at women, meaning the people who go on the internet and read astrology.com website texts and watch tarot readings about it and research about it are women, or the divine feminine parts. It's usually the one that is being sexually exploited / chasing. We know this from psychology, these types of relationships, and we have terms like codependency, borderline narcissistic personality disorder, narcissistic traits, borderline traits, and all these types of things. And I would think that the dynamic in psychology would be referred to as narcissistic and bipolar / borderline disordered human. So traits, of course, no diagnoses shall ever be thrown around. Me, as the aspiring Christian that I consider myself today, find it awful to point your finger at people and shout at them and be like, you. But this is very much what this is based upon, because we've talked about Yvonne Speck, the woman I had to apologize to because I discarded her as a human being for her opinion and her beliefs, which was awful of me. But Yvonne told us in that very aggressive video that if we find fault in the behavior of the divine masculine and we get angry at them, then we should look at ourselves, because we are that fault, and there's a reason why we got raped by our twin flame, and this reason lays in our childhood and in our wounds, and we should be grateful and thankful, and we should never even think about distancing ourselves from our twin flame. Of course, we are constantly in separation, but in our minds, we have to stay put and be content with this human being our twin flame, no matter how horrid things they do to us. So now you're a little bit filled in on the twin flame narrative, the concept. It sounds pretty unhinged, and that's because it is. Now we're gonna dive into twin flames and telepathic communication with such strong bond between two people. This is a theme, as I said, you will see a lot. It's always buttering your ego, whether it is to the specialness of the relationship or the specialness to you. I have seen this in quote unquote telepathy. It's something that I see happen frequently, especially for I have been moving around in these new age spirituality types of communities a lot throughout my life, where people think they are telepathic, they can read other people's minds, and it is like you get a badge of honor. Like my child can hear people's thoughts and stuff. So the whole idea behind this is also, wow, you can do this? Wow. I'm going to slide in a personal belief of mine. I think, and I can't believe that I still think that this is the most craziest thing I'm going to say in this video today, because it's literally the most normal thing to me. But yeah, this is how this works. When you sit in a room with several people, a thought occurs, and it can occur in your mind and other people's minds around you. Now, oftentimes, and this is what I have seen from myself, the thought is something completely spontaneous that almost feels loud and forced. It almost sometimes feels as if it comes from a different voice than my own. When I was still tapping in the dark and wasn't a Christian, I struggled with this all my life, since a young, elder teenager. And so when other people sit at the table and receive that same thought, and it fits to something that you would think, that I would think in that situation, it can be assumed by everyone hearing the thought that I thought that thought. But the trick is, I wouldn't know why I would have thought this. It came completely out of the blue. There was nothing leading up to it in the real world around me. So what I used to do was I would subscribe these thoughts to my subconscious. I would say, well, I've been thinking this now, and it came out so abruptly and loudly because subconsciously I have been dealing with this and that, and then I smelled this maybe, or somebody said something that triggered a memory, and then the thought came into my head. But why then does this human react to my thought? They should not hear this thought. That's not a thing. So when I became a Christian, I realized something. These thoughts, they are a lot like, I think in New Age spirituality, they are called ants, aggressive, thought, I forgot, but it's like the thoughts that come that you cannot control, that you're supposed to let pass by. This is why people meditate, to empty out their heads, and when the thoughts come, you just watch them, let them go. And it's very similar mind concepts in Christianity. Don't let the thought land, because it's not yours. And when we ask ourselves, where do thoughts come from? Yeah, sure, I have a subconscious. I have things going on underneath that I don't even know exist, from wounds and trauma that I have experienced as a child, that I shoved in some ditch, dark corner inside of me. But I know the difference between something that is something that relates to my life, to my story, to my memories, and something that comes out of the blue and is random. So the belief that I have today, and to me it's not a theory or a belief, it's actually a fact. Demons will sit around a table, each will bring their own little demon, and within demon oppression, they will put the thoughts in the people's minds and make certain people hear them. And then as a Christian, I have had situations where it was just the most awful and embarrassing and ugliest and most disgusting thoughts. And it was towards the mother of somebody who was very, very ill. And I was praying for her. I was telling her about Christ. She wasn't a Christian. She had lung cancer, and the cancer had spread into her brain. And when you hear this, you know, especially as a nurse, which I am, you know, okay, this is not going to be easy, because it may be going very fast and she may be dying very soon. And I had the luck to meet her, a beautiful, wonderful, wonderful soul. And I was, it was the first time that as a Christian, I was in touch with someone who was about to die and who wasn't a believer, who didn't believe that Jesus Christ is Lord. And so it was a big deal for me to introduce her to Christ and to represent Christ without speaking about him. And I spent a few beautiful moments with her. We had a conversation about her illness. Because I think this took place because I entered the home. I was working there, and I entered the home, and the thoughts were so vile and so ugly about her. I don't even want to say them. And the ones who heard them, I believe the male partner of the woman whose mother this was heard them too. They were gruesome, but definitely the daughter heard them. And the look that she gave me through the room, she hasn't talked to me ever since. It was very hard for me to bring the good news to her mother, because I could feel she was completely on the fence against me. It was ugly, 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 ugly things. Ugly. I haven't had vile attacks like this in many years. It was so, so ugly. And my conclusion at the end of the day was this happened because seriously there was someone about to die. So it was the end game, who gets the soul. And because if you're not a Christian, the fight that Christians fight is a fight that takes place in the spiritual, not in the flesh. That's why many Christians deny their flesh, right? They fast, they don't use their phone, They overcome the need for passion, for their passions to be fulfilled. The instant gratification versus suffering, which then leads to a spiritual closeness with Christ. I have to choose my words carefully, because there's very thin lines between New Age spirituality and Christianity. But either way, the thing that happened there was the demons that were spread around this woman, and there's certain demons for each thing, were fighting this spiritual fight and making sure that this soul stayed with Satan. Because if you're not a Christian, your soul belongs to Satan. If you don't allow God to take you in, if you don't repent, which means from the Greek root turn around to Christ, and let him change your heart and let him come into your heart, your soul belongs to the devil. It's the same thing with witchcraft, which we talked about in the testimony video before this one in part 1. They need your permission. Like if you have a pentagram on your door, because you think it's pretty or whatever, you don't even know what it means, but you saw it somewhere, or some witchcraft symbol or item, you bring it into your house, you give demons and other spiritual entities permission to come into your house. And some people realize it, they hear them, they see them, especially the ones that are surrounded by Christians or have Christian background in some way, shape or form, but some people don't even know. So yeah, this was my very first encounter with somebody dying, and me watching the demons try to do everything to keep the Christian away from the dying human being. And they used telepathy. And until this day, I know this whole family is convinced that I am the one that has had these thoughts in that moment. When when you come somewhere, especially as a nurse, I have worked with many people that are dying. It was, while I was a nurse, it wasn't appreciated by my colleagues, but my job was to talk to patients. If the doctor came in, yeah, you have cancer, you're gonna die, and then leaves, and the human is there flabbergasted because they've just learned that they're gonna die soon. It was my job to go in, and I didn't care what my colleagues said, and sit and talk, or just sit and just be. So it's not something that is foreign to me. And it would not have been typical for me to have a violent, forceful thought attack towards her mother. Now, we are going to talk about this a little later, because I do think the partner of that woman heard these thoughts, but I also think that the partner of this woman was very much aware that those were not my own. But I must tell you, this is a judgment and an assumption. I will have to repent for saying this out loud, and I am repenting for this constantly, for thinking this, but I do believe that many people know about this. Many people that often are together with people who don't know about this, but more about that later. So here we are talking about twin flame telepathic communication with such strong bond between two people. Twin flames are said to be able to communicate without words via thoughts, dreams, or mind messages. According to Rosetto, which is probably the one who was interviewed for this article, it is not a verbal communication, it's a sensory, energetic communication. Let's really quickly look up what means sensory experience, or sensory adjective, of or relating to the sense or sensation, transmitting impulses from sense organs to nerve centers. So it's something that happens within the body, in this case, in number 2, of or pertaining to the sensorium or sensation. So sensory, anything related to the sensation or the senses, including the transmission of nerve impulses. So someone touches my arm and I feel my nerves transmit information to my brain, someone touching arm. Or I put my finger over the flame, it's hot, my brain alerts me, a warning, pain, there's a flame, right? So she's saying, Rosetto, that it's sensory too, energetic communication. Do I show you this now? And we aren't just speaking about telepathy either. Rosetto says the twin flame connection fosters a deep communal empathy between two lovers that allows them to feel what their partner feels. When you look this up, if you do, you will find people talking about this more in detail. There is, I think it's the Twin Flame subreddit on Reddit. And there you will find people who are like, guys, did I just experience telepathic intercourse with somebody? It was crazy insane. It's a thing. Communication can also occur, and I find it so funny how like, your partner feels, you can feel that, it's normal, that's just how this is. Communication can also occur involuntarily, here we go. That means even if you haven't psychically met your twin flame yet, so even with someone you haven't met, this can work. You might still receive messages from them. Rosetto says this can happen as a sudden sensation, a slip of the tongue, or an emotion that instinctively brings us back to the other person. So what are we talking about here? Casually, as if it's eating an apple, right? She's not saying, guys, you can be standing in the grocery store and all of a sudden you like feel a sensation in a certain body part of yours and you close your eyes because you're overwhelmed and you see the other person masturbating in bed. That's what this is saying. This can happen as a sudden sensation, a slip of the tongue, or an emotion that instinctively brings us back to the other person. Very important here also is the emotion connected with the thought. This is something we will also look into later. Like I said, we're going to do baby steps. I could put all of this in a giant video and jump from one topic to the next and overwhelm you. That's not what we're doing. I am stepping towards this step by step. And if you are listening to this, you are too. And what I'm hoping is that down the line, once I have established and brought out everything that is there, I can create videos that are short and full of information and easy to understand. But for now, this is what we're going to do. And I have, unfortunately, to say many times, we will talk about this later. But remember this for the future: an emotion that is connected to a thought. That is very, very important. Because to bring you back to what we're doing here, I never understand how this pops up. Recruitment in child trafficking, right? Yes. Pathways into minors into sex trafficking. Okay, now this is the scientific one. We had this very simple, stairwayfoundation.org. We talked about this in the very first video, terms and definitions and terminology. How children are being recruited, how most of recruitment happens, 57% of it happens through the internet, online, and how there always needs to be some sort of an emotional connection. Emotional blackmail, false friendship, false marriage, false proposal. That's very important. False elopement. That's very important for the connection to be there. And we see communication can also occur involuntarily. That means even if you haven't physically met your twin flame yet, you might still receive messages from them. So of course, when we go to this website and look at recruitment ways, they're not going to write, predators recruit children telepathically. All they need is a brief contact on the internet, and then they slowly move their ways into the children's minds. Here in the twin flame universe, it's described as something unique to this. I have seen articles float around where they say this is not just a twin flame thing. I haven't looked at those because obviously this is not just a twin flame thing. But that's just my opinions. I leave you to your own opinions, signs and symptoms. So how do you know when you're being contacted by a twin flame? See how this is built up? It's not like, okay, you make the choice to do this, but it's like, it's normal that the one that you're so connected to with your special connection contacts you involuntarily. That's normal, okay? We have to set the basis here, and the baseline of this is normal. There's multiple ways to connect telepathically to your soul's other half. It can happen in dreams, in memories, in sensations. Dreaming of them, hearing their voice in your head. Okay. Feeling intense emotions that don't belong to you, a gut feeling. So here we have the intense emotions that don't belong to us again, having sudden flashbacks or memories. These two are paired together again. We have an emotion and we have thoughts. Hearing their voice in your head. Now, maybe someone's ears have perked up now. Mine certainly have. As I said in the testimony video, it took me 2 years to accept that there is indeed a telepathic connection. And by that time, I had so much proof. I could have, after 6 months, surely have said, there's so much pattern here. There's so much structure here and regularity. That this cannot be coincidence. But I allowed it after 2 years, and I accepted it as this grand connection after 2 years. But then I was in 100%, okay? So hearing a voice in your head, it was for me, and you will find many people that experience it like this. It was like that I would hear their voice and other people's voices in my head. And it literally could be anybody. When I started to realize that something was off and I tried to distance myself, these voices, they changed. And they changed drastically and rapidly. And it came from, white noise in the background to red noise in the foreground. Now, I do not think that people have time to stalk you 24/7, harass you 24/7 telepathically. However, I do think that through things like witchcraft, and yes, things like witchcraft and tarot are very real. I just recently listened to an awesome testimony. I rarely ever listen to them unless I am asked to by the voices in my head. And it was a lady that grew up in Costa Rica, and where I live right now is this exact same conditions. She said that there is a lot of witchcraft, that no one talks about it. Everyone is Catholic, Roman Catholic, I suppose. And no one talks about witchcraft, but everyone does it. You will literally just go to a tarot reader and say, this man married a woman and we don't want her to be married to him, make the marriage break apart. And she will send the spirit of gluttony after her. And because she was a beauty queen and he married her because of her beauty, she'll get fat and the relationship will break up eventually. It's always the long game. It's never, okay, I'm going to make her die or something. It's never that. Witchcraft, I mean, it can be that, of course, but rarely this happens. But the cursing people and speaking spells over people, this is very real. And I know we live in a world where if you believe in this kind of thing, you're deemed crazy. But unfortunately, witchcraft is a very, very, very real thing. The reason I know this is kind of unfortunately fortunate. I mean, it's fortunately unfortunate this way. I did tarot myself for 2 years. I was addicted to tarot, but then I started doing tarot readings, and it was almost, I would say, it was 2.5 towards 3 years that I did tarot, and it's very, very real. I must tell you this. We underestimate these things. So when you hear voices in your head and they suddenly change from, yeah, I'm going to marry you, to I ridicule every little thing that you do, and I speak, vile, disgusting, gross things against you, not against others. Sometimes against others, but not as bad. Then you can know that it's not just human powers engaged, meaning the demons that surround people, that are looking for places to rest and stay, they come because you invite them with things like tarot and New Age spirituality and stuff like this. You invite these voices, and we must see here that there's thousands of people, millions of people that since the 70s are into this. If you do your research, you will find this is not just a few people. Many people, it's a lot of people see this to be their life and to be this real. And there's people that spend 24, 25, 50 years in twin flame limbo all their lives, and they are about to die, and they're like, I love my twin flame so much. We haven't talked in 25 years, but sometimes every once in a while I will hear his voice and he will talk to me. They still believe that this is very real, So we cannot just say, this is something for crazy people. First of all, there's many people who suffer from this, who are oppressed by this, because, she got fat in that example. And eating control and looks and how you dress is a very big part of this twin flame journey. It's always about pleasing the divine masculine with all your femininity. So these things are dangerous. We cannot just say, this is bullshit, tarot, this doesn't work. It's what I said. 3 months later, I was addicted to tarot readings. Okay? So we have to be aware, just aware. We don't have to jump on it and believe it, but we must be aware that many people believe in this. And for many people, this is very real. So when you start distancing yourself from the voices in your head, they become violent, and you start to say, I don't want them. Help. Where do you go for help? I guess a therapist. what will the therapist say you are? Right, you have maybe seen it earlier. You're schizophrenic. You have a schizophrenic episode. Maybe you have a psychotic episode. Whatever it is, you're hearing voices and it's not normal. Now, in New Age spirituality, if we take spirituality and psychology, then we as spiritualists and as Christians as well, we still say, I hear voices. So by definition of science, I'm experiencing a schizophrenic episode. I want to make this clear because I don't want to stigmatize schizophrenia and I don't want to stigmatize Christians. I don't want to be someone who says, well, Christians are cuckoo because they don't believe in mental illnesses. I, for instance, believe that you can be oppressed, maybe possessed by a demon. And possession is not what we know from the movie The Exorcist, or from these few examples that float around on the internet from the 70s, where people took the priest, and this happens today still, took the priest and lifted him up, a little girl, you know. It mustn't always look like this. It's sometimes very subtle, and the demons, oftentimes, they don't need to be known by the victim that they are there. They just like to hang out there. They oppress the victim from within, and the victim has no idea. Oppression mustn't always be violent, screaming, twisting of the head. That wouldn't happen, by the way. So when you hear voices, just, don't go to a doctor and say if you don't want to have a diagnosis in your file for the rest of your life. But if you want to talk about it with people, with friends, then I think it's a wise thing to admit to it, because this is what you have to do nowadays, that schizophrenia or a schizophrenic episode is what it is, because that's just a definition, it's just a term. We have here a video from Genevieve. Genevieve, I haven't watched this. I'm sorry. I would love, out of respect to her and her experience, watch this video. But I suggest we pray for Genevieve and her healing, because the things that she experienced with her mom, who had schizophrenia and a lone-raising mom, I believe, are not easy for a child to digest. And I must admit that during the time of this twin flame rejection, and even during the time of the twin flame journey, there was times where I was out of it. When you're living in your head, thinking the love of your life, the man, your other half of your soul that fulfills you, speaks to you in your head, and has such a huge influence on the things that you do, you're kind of out of it. I wasn't very available at the time for 2 years of my daughter's life. And during the time where the voices changed, it looked like bipolar disorder. There was moments I was totally fine, and then all of a sudden a violent attack would come and thrust me around on the inside, and it would literally feel like something would take me and throw me against walls and on the floor and beat me and spit on me. And I would just have to sit and go through this on the inside. It was extremely violent. It was extremely, extremely, extremely violent, and my mood was influenced. I am not a violent mother. I was heavily abused as a child, and from the very beginning, even though I didn't know what I was doing, when I became pregnant, which I wished to become pregnant, I had a partner and it was all planned. I stopped everything. All my addiction symptom fillers went out of the window, and I changed everything. I left my abusive marriage, although I had to move continents. Like, I was gonna break this cycle of violence for good. And that was the only thing I did right, to be honest. The Lord had always held my hand over me in that realm, because I didn't want to be pregnant when I was young, because I said, the way I was raised, I cannot have children, and the world is really messed up. Now, as a Christian, I am so glad that I did have a child. It's just the best thing. Is it easy? Absolutely not. I think it makes it even harder, but it's the best thing ever. So that being said, schizophrenia is schizophrenia, and I do not believe that medication is what can help someone. I think it can be a bridge to a better time for some, because there is sometimes hormonal imbalances, that can be fixed up for some time with medication. yes, chemical imbalances in the brain or whatever it is. But in general, I do believe that the long-term solution is finding the cause, and causes are always rooted in childhood, where we have trauma sitting, caused by demonic entities and the evil things of this world. And these are then being used to string us along in our pain and misery and despair, and to create more and more chaos and wounds. I think I forgot the beginning of the sentence. I will have to wrap this up soon. I'm getting tired. But I want to get through these comments in the comment section from Genevieve's video. My friend from high school, Happy Cook, 6737, also had a single mom with schizophrenia. And this is a pattern you will see a lot. This is my favorite one for our case. It's terrible, it's horrible, it's horrific. But I like the following because it proves a point. It was terrible beyond words. Her mom told her she could only get dressed under the covers because men were watching through the ceiling light bulbs. They could only shower in the absolute dark for the same reason. Her mom had so many rules about everything, rules that were outrageous and didn't make sense, designed to protect against spies, poisonings from spies, the devil, voices, etc. A tragic, difficult childhood, no doubt about that. My friend got pregnant at 16. Her mom thought the devil made the baby. The baby was placed in an open adoption. My own experience with schizophrenia was when I saw the neighbor's son change from a bright, early high school graduate, graduated college in 3 years, entered medical school. 1 year into medical school, he washed out. The medical school told his dad they suspected onset of schizophrenia. The disease devastated him. He stopped hygiene, refused haircuts, long scraggly beard, mumbling non-stop, wild eyes, etc. He suicided. A terrible tragedy back in the early 80s. So there are several things here that are very interesting. The mother made the children dress in the darkness, shower in the darkness, and dress under covers. She talks here about the spice in the light bulbs. There's this thing that I didn't know about. It's called a monitoring spirit. So the enemy never sleeps. The enemy never has any needs. The enemy fasts. The enemy is always watching. And the devil and the demons, they don't have any needs to fulfill. Their need to fulfill is to literally win your soul for the afterlife, so that your soul can be eternally separated from the Lord. And so they're always listening. They are listening the moment you're conceived, and they are listening the moment you die, because they need to collect information. They know everything about you, just like the Lord, and they watch you all your life. So you can pray against monitoring spirits, and I did that. It was, as I said in the testimony video, something happened to me, and that's how it is for people who experience such things, that could not be explained. So we would have these birds in front of the window, and they would laugh. And I know this sounds crazy, and we're going to get into this a little later. And I stood there and I was like, no, this cannot be. And the way the Lord revealed these things to me was literally baby step by baby step. And he would show me through a comment or something I read somewhere that monitoring spirits were a thing, and what a woman did to stop them from monitoring her. Now, we had encounters with many birds. We had hogs fly over the house, 3 meters, I don't know how many feet these are, above the house, day and night. Every day, they would sometimes sit in our garden. Hogs are not group animals. Hogs are very shy. They do not like to spend time with humans, but 5 meters away from my child, there would be a hog. We had encounters with insects, mainly spiders and some buzzing animals, but also birds. Birds would be the most standing out. And one day we were at home, we lived in nature all the way away from all civilization, and there was birds in front of our window. They were right there in some tree. I couldn't see them, but I could hear them. There was 2 or 3 of them, and it sounded like they were laughing. And this went on for, it felt like half an hour. It was probably 10 minutes. And I kept thinking, okay, just pray the prayer that you read 2 days ago. Just pray it and just pray it and it will stop. But something inside of me was like, no, no, I'm not crazy. This is crazy. The birds are not laughing. The birds are sitting there. They're doing their bird thing. But it literally felt and sounded like they were laughing at me. And when you experience this, you think to yourself, no, I'm not crazy, I promise. So I refused to pray. After, like I said, probably just 10 minutes, I decided, okay, fine, no one will hear that I said this prayer except for Jesus. And so I did it. And I said, in Jesus' name, I rebuke you, stop. Amen. And silence. In that exact moment, they stopped, they never came back. There wasn't a second before or after. The moment I said Amen, it stopped. There was silence. And it was these little things, just like with the twin flame journey. Luckily, it went way faster, that I was now convinced that Jesus was real and he was really and literally and genuinely standing right next to me, holding my hand and helping me navigate through this world of terror and nightmare and horror. And so, yeah, I learned that these things, these monitoring spirits and, the feeling of being watched and voices in your head commenting on your children are very real. And I can see why this mother did it this way. If you're in a good place, you can make it a game, right? You can tell them, no. The thing that I would do, I would just avoid seeing each other in these moments. And I wouldn't mention it in every single moment. It wouldn't be a topic in our house, because the rule was focus on Christ, don't focus on the devil, focus on Christ. And that's very similar in New Age spirituality, focus on the positive. That's, on the other hand, toxic positivity. For prayer is always needed to keep the enemy at bay. If you don't pray, if you don't fast, if you don't move around in scripture every day, if you don't pray when you wake up, if you don't pray when you go to bed, these things will take over your life, and they come in a very, low swell on the ocean, no high waves, and the tide just comes in little by little, hour by hour. And before you know it, you're underwater. In this case, she must not have been feeling good. And if you think about it, if you have voices in your head that constantly harass you, there's not much time to feel good. And I remember myself, the thing that helped me ultimately was the Jesus prayer that I started to pray in my head 24/7. I'm not just saying this. There was not a moment, even when I was talking, I was praying this prayer in the back of my head. And it was the only thing that would keep these voices at bay and make the day bearable. And all of a sudden, I could just be again. And all this would be in the background, and I would still hear it, but it wouldn't rip my emotions into shreds and pieces and thrust me against walls. This is so consuming and so powerful if you experience this. And it's interesting, you will see many, and if you look into this, you will find many reports of alone raising women that experience this. We see the example here of the guy who's thriving, went to medical school, and all of a sudden, and his symptoms were very different, It doesn't matter. No one is immune to this. The devil doesn't care. If you're compliant, like doing my New Age spirituality phase, which was 10 years altogether, I had a peaceful life. Everything was trash, but nothing was bothering me. I was healthy. I was a full functioning mother, and everything, I never stopped functioning as a mother, but emotionally, I was always there. There was no problems in my life. As long as I was a New Age spiritualist, everything was good. The moment I introduced God into my life, everything flipped. So who knows what happened in this man's life in medical school? Maybe he had an encounter with someone dying or something, I saw many people dying, and when they're old and they go slow, and under a lot of pain. Of course, there's morphine involved, but I saw repeating patterns in actions of people. I saw a lot of things. So who knows what he saw, you know? Dove 111, I am sorry that your mom went through this. She needed treatment. I had an aunt. Oh, this is the counterpart now, okay? I had an aunt that was diagnosed with schizophrenia before I was even born. She had a very traumatic childhood. Classic. However, she was one of the nicest caregivers I ever had. So that sounds completely different. We have someone who experienced hearing voices, apparently. So that's the definition for schizophrenia in a nutshell. But she is one of the nicest people ever to be there. And now listen what she does. When I was around 4, I realized she would be talking to herself and laughing. So no crying, no anger burst out, no nothing, okay? She was a beautiful soul. I miss her so much. She taught many good things. Even though she was sick, the relatives didn't provide her with the love, respect, and care she deserved. She was used as their unpaid babysitter. She ran all of the errands for the family every single day. She would walk to every store where there were no cars in our home. I think she only rested on Sundays because all the stores were closed. Otherwise, they would have her working 7 days a week. While the supposedly healthy ones sat around and enjoyed life, she enjoyed reading. That was her escape. She was the most peaceful soul. She was the most peaceful too. She never married. She was a single and she was happy. My theory, she was an angel. But let me turn around, and I think it's the 3rd or 4th commandment. 4th. I don't know, we read the 10 Commandments in German every day, so I don't know in English, but remember the Shabbat, that you keep it holy. So in the Jewish calendar, it's Saturday, it's the last day of the week, but for the Roman Catholics, it's Sunday. And on Sunday, this lady rested. This Dove 111, the human that writes here, has a white dove as a profile picture, right? She thought that she rested on Sundays because many people hold the Shabbat on Sunday to honor the Lord and to rest. That she did it because the stores were closed. At least that's what she's telling us here. Maybe she is telling us that she was a Christian or an angel. I'm saying that she might have been an angel because angels they don't marry and they don't have children. So, but she heard voices and she was talking to herself and laughing. She was a beautiful soul. I miss her so much. She taught many good things. Even though she was sick, and then she writes, the healthy ones, in quote unquotes, were enjoying life. She enjoyed reading, possibly the Bible. We can't click on this, maybe. The internet is gone. Okay, I have a few more. I love this one because there's a huge debate in the different Christianity. What's the word? I forgot the word. I always want to say doc parishes. No, in the different groups of Christianity, also in the main groups, about I forgot what I was going to say. That's fine. I'm a year older than your mom. I have suffered from mental health issues for most of my life, not schizophrenia. I too have also been called crazy, attention-seeking, and worse. I have always accepted help for my disorders, although for the last few years there is none. I have been on the medication roundabout and in several hospital admissions. So here we have someone who really accepted and wanted help. I raised 3 children as a single parent, once again, and I am now estranged from all of them, as well as my biological family. I had 3 bad relationships with men and have lived on my own for the last 10 years since my youngest son left home. I haven't had a man in my life for 36 years. I now live only with my 2 dogs. I have always had a good relationship with animals and have always had my fair share of many different types. What does that mean? Animals. Oh. I got all my emotional support from my dear dad, who passed away 4 years ago. My life has gone downhill ever since. Thank you for sharing your story. It reminds me a lot of my own and has me in tears. Linda McGregor, if you have the time, please pray for her. My mom has schizophrenia too. She was extremely violent and cruel. My extended family believed mental illness was a moral failing. As a result, they wanted to keep it a secret. I was 8 when she was diagnosed, and the language I was given to explain what was going on with her only minimized it, and it really gaslit me. My grandmother would say that my mother had a little chemical imbalance, but she takes a pill every day and she's totally normal. None of that was true. My mother did not take the advice of her doctor and wasn't consistent with her meds. And when she was it only sort of worked. My grandmother convinced me that this was all normal, and I spent most of my life not understanding why she hated me and trying to manage her rage and violence. I can attest to this having a very similar experience. I always thought my mother had extreme borderline personality disorder, for her mood swings were outrageous, and sometimes she would just be angry for weeks on end. And looking back and knowing what I know now, I have reinitiated the contact with my mother, and she's still exactly the same. And she's still trying to push me in that little box that she put me in when I was a little child, which essentially is you're nothing, and I can do with you however I please. And it's not easy to deal with this, but now I understand what's going on inside of her head, because you can literally see the thoughts and emotions, the thoughts connected with the emotions that are being put in her head, meaning having sudden flashback or memory, feeling intense emotions that don't belong to you, meaning I say something, I do something, and she jumps to 15 different conclusions. She doesn't ask any questions. She just shoots a message and she shouts at me, assumes that I'm using people to hurt her, innocent people. This has been the ongoing thing in her life, that now where I have a child, I'm using my child to control her and to pay her back. Outrageous claims, things I would never do. Like, think about it. If one leaves their home bruised and bleeding and then says, I'll never have children, and then finds a man that they think are good, and then they have a child, and then they break all the bad patterns and behaviors, or at least try. I miserably failed with a lot of them. But I tried, and it would not. And it's been even to this day where she now accuses me of these things, and I second guess myself. And then I remember, oh Lord, I'm so sorry. I didn't trust you. Then I remember that now I am with Christ, and that if my motive stems from Christ, then it's impossible that she points her finger and shouts at me and says, you are doing this. And I have to go back and think, oh, maybe my subconscious, I'm not over it. Maybe it's because I'm hurt. It's really, 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 really tricky when you have experienced this kind of stuff as a child. None was true. My mother did not take the advice for the doctor. I spent normal life in my life and trying to manage her rage and violence. She would consistently bounce between boiling, blinding rage and blubbering, sobbing on the floor. She had so many delusions about people all over town, and that's something that happens. And the crazy thing is, since witchcraft and stalking and people ganging up on you to stalk you is a real thing, that mixes with the voices in your head, and all of a sudden you'll have a neighbor walking above you and you will connect it to some crazy thing that they're stalking you, when in reality they were just walking. But it's not strange that you come to this conclusion, because outside there are men sitting scrolling TikTok videos on full volume right underneath your balcony to terrorize you day and night. Or wherever you go, a car follows you and stops next to you with a man inside, and they watch you dress your child on the beach, or just walk your dog. And wherever you go and they can't follow you, they follow you. So there's such a thin line for people who experience this between paranoia and just seeing what's going on. And it's very important when you experience this, if you are somebody who has experience with this or is experiencing this currently and has a hard time deciphering what's real, what's an illusion, it's very important to observe a pattern first. And if there's a pattern, to address it. The very first step, though, is to understand the concept of there is a thought. We just lost touch. That's fine. I will just continue talking in the dark. Oh, we've just come back. Okay, welcome back. No, I think we're gone. It's fine. I will put some pictures here. It's extremely important for you to address the thought attached to an emotion concept. This is very, very important, because a lot of times thoughts are not our own, but they're dressed up as our own because they fit the situation, they fit what someone just said around you. But if you think that demons are watching and observing what you're doing, then they know if she sees this, or if she thinks about this beforehand, or if this happens before I give her this thought, she will think it's her own. It's a very simple thing. It's the whole thing. Everything they do is really very simple. But since we are in the middle of it, it's extremely complicated. So before you look into anything, ask yourself, is this thought mine? Because demons and the enemy, they cannot read our mind. They do not know what's going on in there. God knows, Satan doesn't. But Satan studies us on the outside, so they will be able to put thoughts in our heads, and then we are the ones discerning, is this mine? Does this make sense? Where does this anxiety come from all of a sudden? Why is there so much anxiety attached to this? Is this just an old idea from my past? Or is there something in my real world right now that could cause me to feel this and that way? For instance, with my mother, she will send me a message and her voice will be just as it used to be 25 years ago, full of hatred, pure spite and hatred. And you can hear in her voice, if she could, she would just kill me and take her so-called grandchild and raise her to be what she needs the grandchild to be, because that's the whole point of this, okay? It's fulfilling an emotional need that cannot be fulfilled by people, but only by Christ. So if you take that example, and then I hear the message, and my whole, I have now reached out to her. I have told her that I'm so sorry for what happened to us as a family. I find places for her to crawl into when there's injustice in her life that she has caused through her behavior, yes. But she doesn't understand that demonic oppression has led to her being mentally ill at this point. And by that, I just mean mentally unstable, right? You cannot, in the one moment, send a voice message, hey, this city is so beautiful, look at this picture of the licorice. And then the next message after she hears my daughter say, hey, you sound kind of sad. Are you sad? Maybe you're sad because of what happened when my mom was a child, being like, you are manipulating your child to force me to crawl around on the knees in front of you. I can't imitate it. I've tried it when I try to make sense of it, but I had to back check on my emotions, because the anxiety that I used to feel when I was younger and even as an adult tried to creep in, but I realized that it wasn't part of my life anymore, because after Jesus told me, call your mom, I did. And I wasn't scared contacting her. I didn't care. It wasn't for me. I don't call her mama for myself. I call her mom because I know it would hurt her if I called her by her first name. You know what I mean? I don't have to be the child. I don't need her to be my mother. I have a mother now. So me sitting there and listening to the message and realizing anxiety creeps up, I realized it's just a thought. The thought of my mother thinking that I was using my child to bully and manipulate her into doing what I want her to do, connected to a memory of a feeling, something that is now not relevant anymore, because now I'm here with Jesus. and she can't harm me anymore. She doesn't have control over me. And the way I deal with this now is I continue to be kind. I take the time to write messages that use Bible verses to explain to her why I am not playing with her. Why I've never done that. I don't do that kind of thing. My brain is, first of all, not intelligent enough for this kind of stuff. And I'm too lazy to waste my time and energy to think, what can I say to this human so I get something? I have people around me right now where no matter what I say, they will twist my words somehow into something that is negative. And I don't know how they do it. It's crazy. No matter what I say, they always manage to make it so as if I had said something really gnarly. And I don't do that. I've never done that. And so it's very, it's kind of easy for me to distance myself from her accusations. But of course, emotionally, it's very difficult. I'm extremely exhausted from this. This was a lot of talking. And so it's very warm in here because I have to shut the window. So I will just wrap it up here. I think we got pretty nitty and gritty today. I think this was a lot. This wasn't baby steps. But as I said, I am hoping that for the Adelphoi that listen to this now, it's going to be helpful, for they have experienced things like this themselves. And I will also tag it with twin flame and all that, so that people who are caught in the maze right now can find a way out. Because I know of many people on the internet, not personally, that kind of want out. They don't say it, but it sounds like a cry for help. Because there's a carrot in front of their faces and they will never get the carrot. But every day they're being told that the carrot is so juicy, but they will never have it. And so if you listen to this and this helps you, then that's a great thing. You know, this isn't about me or telling you about my grand life or what a good person I am or whatever. Trust me, I'm the least of a good person. I am definitely not, absolutely not any good. I'm a hot mess, and without Jesus, I cannot put my shoes on, okay? Just so you know, it's not an ego booster thing for me, for you to write that anything, and not fishing for compliments. This is a way for me to be able to silence the voices that claim that it's too much. You could never prove that this is real. Because when I come to work, when I come to do this, this is the loudest doubt in my mind, that no one will believe me, it's crazy, laughing birds in front of your window, that's insane, people will say that you're crazy, and it's too much. It's too much information, your brain is too little, and you cannot prove it. And so I'm uploading all these rambly type kind of guided videos, a little bit structured, so that I have everything out, and then hopefully I can come back and take the most important parts of information and put them together in informative, short 12-minute, 10-minute long videos that explain what's going on. 2 Timothy, I do not remember the verse, but the Lord hasn't given us a spirit of fear, but of love and of strength and of a sound mind. And that is true. So no worries there. It's going to be a little bit rambly and a lot of words, but I assume if someone is in need of hearing somebody else talk about this, because what I'm trying to bring to you is truth, not some ideology or propaganda or some concept or another religious dogma, that's good, that's all that matters. This isn't about the views or something. But we will work our way towards how children are being recruited in ways that we could have never imagined could be possible, and how children can be sex trafficked under the very eyes of the parent, when the parent is like next door or even in the same room. Okay, I'll say prayer. I know we're not supposed to pray in public. I hope that this can be understood as simply the knowledge that the Lord is with us in this journey. I'm not going to ramble a prayer. I can do that sometimes for myself or for my family, but usually I pray the Our Father, and that's what we're going to pray now. May the Lord bless you to the core of your being. May He keep you and never forsake you. In Jesus' name, Amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. And give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. For yours is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.